Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Back in November, he was elected president of Ivory Coast, but for nearly 5 months, Alassane Ouattara was holed up in a UN-guarded hotel. The whole world watched. Last month, the Battle of Abidjan pitched scenes. This past Saturday, more than 20 heads of state converging here on the political capital, Yamoussoukro, for the inauguration of Alassane Ouattara. Mr. President, thank you for welcoming us here at the official residence of the President of the Ivorian Republic.
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Why did Saturday's ceremony matter?
Well, Ivorians have voted massively. They have elected a president. The former president did not want to leave. He has left. He is now in jail under house arrest, as we say here. And it was important for us to say that we're going to something else.
Now, rivaling...
And that, thanks God, it's over. The brutality, the violence, all that we suffered for 5 months. But thanks God, it's over.
Now, rivaling you on the applause meter was the French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, some even quipping that it was his party, not yours.
Well, Nicolas Sarkozy was applauded because of the role that Ban Ki-moon also was applauded, if I may say, because the Ivorians realized the role that the United Nations and France under United Nations mandate have done to help us with the destruction of heavy weapons in Abidjan. I'd like to say that the French acted under the United Nations mandate. And this was done with our requests. I called Ban Ki-moon, I called Mr. Sarkozy, and I told them we have a resolution of the UN, Resolution 1975. Mr. Gbagbo is using heavy weapons, tanks and rockets and so forth, against civilians.
But detractors point to your close personal ties. It's easy to pick up the phone, speak to a man who was witness at your wedding.
Well, no, he did not participate in my wedding. Those are rumors. I think you better check your facts. And I called Ban Ki-moon also. After all, I'm an elected president. And when a president called another president, by courtesy, leaving aside the friendship that we have, which is not recent. We've known each other for more than 20 years. I called Ban Ki-moon, I called Nicolas Sarkozy, and this was the thing to do for the president of a country where people are being killed by thousands by someone who has been defeated in the elections.
So what do you do now? How far do you go in terms of justice or retribution? It's a difficult balance.
Well, I think I've created a commission for dialogue, truth and reconciliation. And at the same time, the judicial process is continuing. And so we'll see at the end. But justice must be rendered. Impunity must be ended in Côte d'Ivoire, especially for war crimes, for crimes against humanity. These are very serious matters. Some other head of states are under the International Criminal Court. So why not Mr. Gbagbo? So he will go to the International Criminal Court. That's our objective.
Which was the real Laurent Gbagbo, the one that debated with you before the second round, or the one that stockpiled heavy weapons in his house?
Well, I think it's a doctor. I would not go that far, but certainly I was very disappointed with Mr. Gbagbo.
Were you surprised?
Because, well, I was surprised up to a point. I know that he never really met his commitment. At the same time, I did not think, I did not believe he would go that far. A man who considered himself a nationalist, who said he loved Côte d'Ivoire, he loved Ivorians, going to destroy Côte d'Ivoire, to kill Ivorians, that was a shock for me.
What do you do about some of his militiamen who are said to be either in Liberia, in Ghana? I know that the presidents of both those countries attended the inauguration. What did you say to them?
Yes, I've talked to them. I talked to Madam Sirleaf Johnson. It becomes a regional matter because the militia, the mercenaries were in Abidjan and elsewhere. They were pushed out. Now they've gone to the frontier. Probably they'll be crossing over to Liberia and probably to some other countries. And so we have to treat this as a regional matter and find a regional solution. I've raised this issue with Secretary General Ban Ki-moon on Saturday, yesterday. And I think it's important that we find a solution which will neutralize this type of activity in West Africa, particularly Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, Guinea. This is a regional solution that we're looking after.
John Adam Mills, the president of Ghana, was backed by Laurent Gbagbo in his election, yet he was there present at the inauguration, and he didn't play an active role against you. Were you surprised, pleasantly surprised?
No, I think Ghana has shown that the Ghanaians people support democracy. President Tata Mills is a Democrat, so it was normal that he gives me support as elected president of Cote d'Ivoire. And I've talked to him almost on a weekly basis, so we have very, very good relations.
How do you explain the fact that his is a country where he was elected, with just a razor-thin margin, and the loser accepts the verdict?
Yes.
And in Ivory Coast, of course, we've seen what happened. How do you explain this?
Well, we would have liked to have
What's the difference?
I think it depends on the leaders, clearly. I think leadership is important. And I recall 20 years ago when we had all the debates about ownership and leadership, and I said leadership is as important, even more important than ownership. Because if you don't have the right man at the right time, at the right place, you get bad surprises.
Speaking of leadership,
yes.
One of the challenges you have is all those very young people. We see the former rebels, now FRCI, who are outside all the police stations, the gendarmeries.
Yes.
How do you disarm them? How do you get them to go back to school?
We're getting them under control. We'll train them. Some of them are regular people who have recruited to become part of the police. Some others have nothing to do with the FRC. So we're going to clean all this process.
How long will it take?
Well, it will take another few weeks, but we're confident. Oh, yes, I'm confident that we will be able to do this. Now, the police and the gendarmes have gone back to work at more than 90% already. So the process is really getting into place. We don't have, and Abidjan is peaceful, Yamoussoukro is peaceful. The rest of the country, except on the western side, where the border with Liberia, where we had this massive flow of mercenaries and militia that have gone there. It's tens of thousands of militia and mercenaries that Gbagbo had armed to be in Abidjan and other major countries, major cities.
How soon can we see prosecution of those who committed crimes in your name in that western part of the country?
Well, this is investigation, and then it will be in the hands of the justice. But there will be no impunity. I've said that, I repeat that. But we should not accuse people before we have a proper investigation. I've asked the prosecutor here to do this. I've asked the Human Rights Commission to do it. And then once we have their reports, we'll decide what to do.
Ivory Coast, you have a grace period now,
yes,
in which to rebuild. Are you going to review the model based a lot on commodities like oil and cocoa, money of cocoa that built this beautiful palace here?
Yes.
Are you going to review that model so that you're not dependent on fluctuating prices like this?
No. Clearly, the reforms are necessary. We will do this. Not only on cocoa or petroleum, but the whole governance process of the country. I'm an economist. I've worked for several years at the International Monetary Fund. It's important for this country to be managed properly. And this is something we will do. We want the public resources to be used for the citizens of this country.
And do you have the human resources for that? Have you got the right people for these jobs?
The problem was misallocation of human resources. We will make sure that competent people, well-trained people, in Côte d'Ivoire as well as abroad, come and participate and contribute to the development of Côte d'Ivoire. I'm confident that many young people will come back.
Mr. President, one final question.
Yes.
Getting back to what you said at the outset,
yes.
You spent those 4.5 months in that UN-guarded hotel.
Yes.
What's it like to wake up here in the presidential palace?
No, I don't see the glamour or I was focused on what I should do for my country. And I think that has been my point of concentration. That's what I will continue to do. Every day, every night, I should say, when I sleep, I say, well, what will I do for my country when I wake up in the next morning?
For instance, Barack Obama,
yes.
he was asked, what's it like having the color guard? He says, I love
yes.
it. He said, he's honest about it.
Yeah, to do
here,
what?
when I have the color guard and the band that plays in
yes.
Air Force One, and he says,
yes.
yeah, of course I like it, he said.
Well,
it must be a culture shock for you, a culture shock to go from the Gulf Hotel to here.
No, really not. I'm sorry to say. You know, I was Prime Minister of Félix Houphouët-Boigny 20 years ago. I was in this palace almost every week. I slept here. So that's nothing new for me, if I may say, humbly. And the Gulf Hotel was not a bad hotel either, so it was comfortable. And what I missed most was my office. My office at the Deux Plateaux, where I used to go every morning to work with my staff. That I did not have at the Gulf Hotel. I had to use a tiny hotel room. I did not have all the equipments, my computers. Fortunately, I had an iPad, which helped me a lot at the Gulf Hotel. So obviously, it's better to be in freedom than in prison.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. President, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for the France 24 interview.